As troop surge in Iraq continues to show progress, we're learning the surge of American weapons that have flowed into the country from as far back as 2004, in some cases ended up arming the wrong people. There's now a report about an Iraqi businessman creating his own arms bazaar with Pentagon-supplied rifles and machine guns. According to the New York Times, the contractor who issued arms to Iraqi police cadets also sold weapons by the truckload to Iraqi militias, South African groups, and even some Americans.
Some ask how urgent this danger is to America and the world. The danger is already significant, and it only grows worse with time.
It's the highest number of Army desertions during the entire Iraq War. Army figures released today show that over the past year, 4,698 soldiers were declared deserters. That's an alarming increase of 42% over the previous year, but a stunning 80% jump in desertions compared to the first year of fighting.
Our investigation revealed that in 2005 alone, 120 veterans took their lives every week, more than double the suicide rate for Americans overall.
We call it the don't look, don't find policy. If VA doesn't collect the data, then they don't have to do anything about it.
The numbers the VA does report reveal an agency struggling to cope. 100,000 vets now seeking help for mental health issues, 52,000 for post-traumatic stress disorder alone. And now, on the heels of these recent reports criticizing the VA's treatment and spending practices, come two more blows. Of nearly 90,000 Army vets returning from Iraq, this study released yesterday found 28% experienced mental health problems. And this report released last week says while veterans are 11% of the general population, they now make up an estimated 25% of the homeless.
Our military is low on parts, pay, and morale.
An outside panel warned today the U.S. Army doesn't have enough people to manage its supply system. The Army commissioned the report after major problems with waste, fraud, and abuse in Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan.
If called on by the Commander-in-Chief today, 2 entire divisions of the Army would have to report, "Not ready for duty, sir."
A wave of new financial fears sent Wall Street into a nosedive today. Stocks fell partly on concerns about effects of the credit crunch on big banks and on weak growth in consumer spending. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 362 points to close below 13,568. The Nasdaq fell 64 points to close below 2795. There was also growing concern today the Federal Reserve may hold off on any more interest rate cuts. The Fed did pump another $40 billion into the banking system today to help ease the credit crunch. It was the largest cash infusion since September 2001. Home loan foreclosures in the U.S. surged again in the year's third quarter. That word came today in a closely watched survey by the private company RealtyTrack. It found foreclosures from July through September doubled over the same period a year ago to more than 446,000. Chrysler today announced plans to cut as many as 12,000 jobs, 15% of its total workforce. Up to 10,000 hourly and 2,100 salary jobs will disappear through 2008 through buyouts and early retirement. The company also plans to cut 4 vehicle models from its lineup. The announcement is on top of 13,000 jobs already slated for elimination.
The price of oil traded above $97 a barrel today for the first time.
Good evening. The following sounds pretty awful, and we take no pleasure in reporting it, but today Wall Street fell, the U.S. dollar fell, GM is in bad shape, and the housing market continues to be in big trouble. Before we talk about what it all means, let's begin with those stocks. The Dow was down just under 361 points on the day. NASDAQ lost more than 76 points. S&P was down 45.
The same tyrant has tried to dominate the Middle East, has invaded and brutally occupied a small neighbor, has struck other nations without warning, and holds an unrelenting hostility toward the United States. And he cannot be trusted.
Iraqis returning to Baghdad these days will notice a change of demographics in the city. East of the Tigris River is almost exclusively Shia. To the west, mainly Sunni. And there are no longer large numbers of bodies found around the city every morning. sectarian violence has dropped because many areas of Baghdad have been ethnically cleansed.
How far would you be willing to go, Governor, in stopping Iran from building a nuclear bomb?
Whatever it takes. We cannot allow Iran to have nuclear capacities. Well, I think the president's right to start with trying to bankrupt them before we bomb them.
They've got about 1,000 centrifuges now working, enriching the material that can make, at some point, a nuclear device.
Part of the premise of talking to Iran has to be that they have to know very clearly that it is unacceptable to the United States that they have nuclear power. I think it could be done with conventional weapons, but you can't rule out anything, and you shouldn't take any option off the table.
So I've told people that if you're interested in avoiding World War III,